Hey guys, this is Dean, and I thought I would do something a little bit different today. I'm not a cook. I don't play a cook. I don't pretend to be a cook. But I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like tofu because it doesn't have a taste to it, or they don't know how to prepare it, or whatever. And I feel like I have gotten to the point where I prepare tofu in a way that I like it. You may not like it, but I thought I would take a few minutes to show you exactly how I cook tofu. And I'll show you how that works. And you can take it or leave it. Okay? All right, so I start with this is the tofu that I use. I mean, this is extra firm. You'll notice the tofu comes in extra firm, firm, and it comes in silken. Don't buy the silken tofu. Silken tofu won't do you any good for the way we're going to prepare it. Okay, so extra firm tofu, whatever brand is fine, and of course it's got lots of water in it. So the first thing that I do is I cut the package open, and you see all the water coming up. So I've got to drain that water off there. You want it to be as dry as possible when you start to use it. So I get all that water out of there. And then your tofu just comes out in one big block, right? So I take it and I just throw it onto the plate like that, right? All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this tofu up into pieces. And I'm going to cut them into small pieces. A lot of times, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, a lot of times what you find is they'll cut it in like 1-inch blocks, some big, thick blocks. I cut it a lot smaller than that. And I do that because I think it tastes better when you do it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right along here. And I'm going to cut them, I don't know, what's that? 3/8 of an inch maybe, square. And I'm going to cut it down the full length this way. And then when I get there, I'm going to turn my plate and I'm going to cut them this way. You notice I put my fingers behind it as I pull the knife out, and that seems to keep it in. Because you want to leave it stacked like this, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. So once I've got that cut up into squares like that, they're just long, almost cylinders, right? So now I'm going to take these and I'm going to cut straight across like this. I'm going to come down about another 3/8, half an inch, and I'm going to cut it straight through this way. I'm going to try to keep it as level as I can, not worrying about whether it's perfect or not, right? And then I'm going to come down a little further and I'm going to cut it again. And the whole idea, of course, is to get this in squares, right? And so that's kind of what you see here is a bunch of squares. All right. So that's what I do to get it ready. And when I get that ready, it's time to go to the pan, right? All right. So let's go to the pan. All right. So I've got my tofu. I've got my pan. I've already got it heated up a little bit. I'm going to spray a little bit of Pam on there it never hurts to have a little bit of Pam olive oil there to get it good and slick. So now I'm going to take about, this is a big pan. You notice how big the pan is. I'm going to take about half of it, and I'm going to put about half of it in here. I'm just going to spread it out. And that's about half of it. And now I'm just gonna let it brown, right? I'm just gonna leave it in there long enough. Some of these longer pieces, if I got some in there that's longer, I may cut them at this point. But I'm just gonna let that, well, I could just about, pan's almost big enough to do it all at once. But I'm just gonna let that get nice and brown. Put a little bit more in there. It'll take several minutes for that to happen, so I'm going to let it go. Now here's some of the other things that I'm going to be using. I'm going to be using some extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to be using some soy sauce. I've already used my olive oil. I'm going to be using this. It's Johnny's garlic spread. I get that at Costco in case you're wondering where that comes from. You can use other things, but I like this. It's garlicky, but it's not as salty as like garlic salt is. So I like this garlic spread a little bit more. And then, of course, you don't do anything without fine ground black pepper. You always put pepper on everything because it makes everything taste better. So again, I'm just gonna kind of toss this around, just kind of try to heat it up as much as I can. And again, let me turn that up so we can brown it a little bit quicker. And it's gonna take probably a good 10 minutes or so for this to start to get brown. And when it starts, when you know it's time to start working it, it starts to stick to the pan a little bit, depending on the pan. I haven't cooked in this pan yet, so I'm not even sure how it's gonna react in here. But once it starts to get brown, I'm gonna try to brown it on as many sides as I can, you know, not being perfect. And then we'll go to the next step after that. So we'll be back when we get it brown. All right, so as you can see, now the tofu has kind of started to get this brownish color to it. And that's kind of the way we want it. We just want it to turn just the slightest color brown, right? And when we get to that point where it's brown, I'm going to take this garlic spread. I'm going to put some of that on there. And then I'm going to take the pepper and put some pepper on it. And then I'm going to kind of toss that around a little bit like that, with that in there. And just kind of get it mixed up. You see the difference between what hasn't been cooked and what has been cooked. So you kind of see what it's supposed to look like. And then when you get to this point where it looks like it's almost starting to turn a little bit crispy, and just before you get through with it, I'm going to take the soy sauce and I'm just going to pour some soy sauce over the top of it. And then I'm just going to kind of toss it in the soy sauce and let it soak up some soy sauce. And then I kind of let the soy sauce dry up, because it'll dry up fairly quickly. It might have been a little much on the soy sauce in that case. But I'll take that when I get through with it. And like I said, I just let it cook for just a second in that soy sauce. And as it starts to kind of dry up, I'll take it and it's done. So I'll put it in a container. And I will pour the rest of what I have in there to start the rest of it. And with this, I'll do the same thing that I just did with that batch. So if you got a pan big enough, I suppose you could do it all at one time. And this pan may be big enough. It's bigger than the one we used to use. And again, we're just going to go through that same process again with the second half and let it brown. Do the same thing with what I've got. You notice I didn't use the olive oil. With the pan that I used to have to use the olive oil to keep it, to not get stuck on the pan. This pan is just a better pan, and so it didn't get stuck on this pan, and so I didn't use any of the olive oil. I'm interested to see if it changes the way it tastes at all. We'll see, because we haven't had it that way. We've always had the olive oil on there too, so we'll see how it goes. You'll notice that the second one browns a little bit faster than the first one, but I think part of that is because you've still got a little bit of soy sauce in the pan. So I don't know if it browns as much or it just looks like it's browning. But we'll go again, just go through that same process with that batch, and then we're done. And I'll come back and I'll show you what I do with the tofu to make meals that I like. And I'll give you, it'll be a suggestion. You can do lots of stuff with tofu. You can put tofu in just about anything, with anything. It's a little bit like rice, in that it kind of goes with almost anything, because it doesn't, we're adding flavor to it, because tofu in and of itself doesn't have hardly any taste. So whatever you add to it is what it tastes like. And this is stuff that I like. So if we have any professional chefs out there, please don't tell me what I'm doing wrong. Because the bottom line is, you know, here's the way I look at cooking. And I don't know how many of you out there are cooks and how many of you are not, but I look at cooking this way. If I like it, I don't care whether I do it right or not. If it tastes good, it tastes good. I'm not, and I'm not too proud to copy anybody either. If I do see somebody do something that I think is a little bit better, then I may try that. All right, so we are just about done with the second half of it. Get my soy sauce. That's a more appropriate amount. You notice how it dries up fairly quickly when you put the appropriate amount in there. And then I'm done there. One of the things that I like is when you get through with that, you notice there's this little, like these scrapings that you can scrape off the pan. And I like to scrape that off and put that in with my tofu. It's a little bit crunchy and it's good. So there you go. So there's what I do to cook the tofu. Now, what do I do with that tofu? Now, I could do all sorts of things with that tofu, right? Debbie even has her tofu with her eggs. You can have tofu with almost anything. I'm going to show you what I have it with. I've heated up a couple of things here. So here I have some quinoa that I have already cooked up. I've had it in the refrigerator. You can tell I've eaten some out of this. And I'm just going to take some of that quinoa and I'm just going to spread a bed of it on my plate. And then I'm going to take that tofu and I'm going to put it over the top of that, like so. And then on top of the tofu, I'm going to have some black beans. And there you go. There is a delicious meal that's very, very easy to fix. These are black beans out of a can, actually. The quinoa takes 15 minutes to fix. And doesn't it look delicious? And I promise you that it is delicious. Now, if you want to put some salt and pepper on top of that, that's great. But the tofu has a good bit of flavoring in it already. And so it's pretty good. Until next time, may God bless every step of every run or walk. Go out there and shine your light.